More like that. Okay. Hello, everyone. So, thank you so much, everybody, for having us. My name is Dr. Nehan Therapist, and I'm working with children and adults. As you all know me already, and today I have another guest, and her then let me give a little bit of introduction, and I will ask her to explain a bit more about what she's doing. Basically, she is working for abuse and trauma victims, and she's mainly focused on girl, child, and women as well. And as far as abuse is concerned, trauma is concerned, everybody can go through trauma and abuse at any stage of life. But there are a lot of serious repercussions for, especially for girls, life with that trauma, and that is affecting. She have to be a mother as well, and she have to raise the children as well. So thank you so much, Jay, for having giving us this opportunity to talk to you about this, and so that we talk about our topic.
I'm losing you a little bit in the audio. Can you repeat your question?
Okay, I just asked you to introduce yourself, then we will discuss about the topic and continue our discussion. So
Sure.
I would like you to tell me about your, or tell our viewer about your organization actually.
Sure. My name is Jay. I'm the founder of Senseless. We are a movement against interpersonal violence, and our mission and goal is to create education and resources and awareness to communities and victims of personal violence, interpersonal violence, domestic violence, emotional, psychological violence, as well as educate those who may or may not necessarily be victims but are in the community. The goal is to create the opportunity for people to learn more about how they can get involved, how they can prevent violence from happening, what to do when violence happens, and what to do after the fact, and to be able to provide resources all the way across the board. So we're having a lot of really great conversations on with folks and doctors like you, and spreading the word and trying to figure out the best way to pursue our reach and continue our mission.
Okay, sorry, people. I don't know. At 4 o'clock, I did one stream. It was very much okay. I don't know what happened with this,
No worries, internet.
technology. Because at 4 o'clock, I did one stream and that goes so well. It was a little bit distortion. So, we were talking about the. Okay, let's start again. Okay. So, we were talking about the discussion that today we have, and let me introduce the topic. The topic of today's discussion is trauma of abuse, cause and effect on mental health, mental, emotional, physical health of boys, women, and girls. So, I'm going to ask you, Jay, why you're more on girl and women?
Why am I focused on girls and women? I'm sorry, the connection doesn't seem to be going through on my end. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Okay, but I can hear you. You can talk. I think if or
I can kind of make out what you're saying a little bit. I can't fully hear the full sentences.
asking that you are focusing girl and women. Is there any specific reason that why you're focusing these? Because according to research, men are also victim of abuse as well. It could be in any form. So
Yeah, we're not necessarily focused on women and girls, though obviously as a woman myself, I relate to that as well and more personally. But the goal is to provide education regardless of the age, gender, location, background, cultural, or social economic status, anything of that nature. We want to provide the same resources to everybody across the board. However, we do know that women and young girls in particular are victims more times than men, and so it is only fitting to be able to focus on what that means for women, what that means for young girls, to address those particular situations and to equip women in our community and beyond around the world and young girls to find their voice as it pertains to their own bodies, to their own self-worth, and give them an opportunity to speak out on their own behalf. So we do work with a lot of women, but we are not focused solely on working with women.
can you hear us?
I can hear you. It's going a little in and out. I can hear you
Yeah,
better.
then we better do. I don't know what to do with these technological faults. Okay, so yes, you're right that you are not focusing just the children. I mean, the girl and the woman, because everyone is, victim of that abuse, and that is creating a lot of trauma for the people. And the precaution is very serious. It could be emotional, it could be physical, and mental as well. So,
Yes.
and the abuse could be anyone. It's just not about the gender. It could be anyone. Even it could happen to the same gender as well. So, okay, what make you come to that area of the world? Because you could choose anything else, you could go for something else, but mainly working on that because that is a very sensitive area. Because if I'm not wrong, you're also going toward the legislation part of that thing as well. And
Correct. So
like in our last
I
discussion, that there are a lot of people who are not getting the justice for these issues.
Yeah, so my background is actually in business. I've worked with corporate giants all over here in the States. And so my background is by trade business. However, I have been a victim of trauma and abuse and violence. And actually, pretty recently, and in my own experience, the justice system failed. The police officers failed. The jurisdictions failed. There was nothing, no one that I could reach out to where there felt as if I was being heard as an individual, as if I felt like my case was being moved forward in a positive way or in a productive way. I felt as if my experience was extremely transactional. And what that did for me was allow me to see this very archaic, very broken system that is sort of designed to further victimize individuals who come to a state or government agency with their concern, looking for assistance, looking for resource, looking for answers, and not being able to find them. I felt like very isolated in my process. And when I sat back and understood what that felt for me, it occurred to me, one, that I'm not the only person who has experienced either trauma or difficulty pursuing justice for what I felt I needed in my particular situation, but also that there are millions of women around the world who are not receiving the same justice or justice at all, that it's simply just an occurrence that happens that we've become very comfortable with. Abuse happens, trauma happens, you hear it, people sweep it under the rug. And so for me, that ignited a passion to speak out about it, to speak on it, and to do what I can do, and to begin to create change, not only in my personal community, in my own group of friends, but beyond that. And as we go forward, yes, we will be discussing more of the legislative side of these kind of laws. We will be asking difficult questions to our lawmakers. We will be challenging them to rethink and think thoroughly through the laws that are currently in place, with the goal of making sure that any victim, every victim, male, female, young, old, does not matter, that they are heard, they are seen as individuals, and they have the equal opportunity to pursue the healing and restoration that they need.
Okay, so I feel very, sorry to, sorry, sorry, just I was not expecting that we will go toward that aspect or that emotional, but sorry to hear that you are the victim. And as a society, as a woman, whenever you go and you step out, you are automatically, targeted to these things. It's not always about the word. It's not about always about the act. Sometimes these are the way they are looking towards you. I mean, the way you're looking toward you, either you are covered or you're not covered. Either the way you dress up, either it could be the way that you're speaking about yourself. So can you please tell our viewers that you're from which area? You're from which state?
I'm from Colorado. But what happened to me was in a different state. I was actually there on business. It was just a middle of the day, broad open daylight, completely random occurrence. Did not know my abuser or my attacker, and it was very brazen. It was very bold on his behalf. And so I think that when you consider that and you think about other times where you're in a dangerous part of town or it's late at night, those statistics continue to go up.
So I'm just, the reason I was asking because as I in our previous interview I told you that I'm from Pakistan, you're from different state, and maybe there's this, a big gap of the society, of the lawmakers, and you would say that girls are very, women are very independent in Europe, and they can say anything to you. Even then, being a strong woman, being a person who can speak about their self, are still victim of that. It means that nobody is exceptional. Anywhere, a person could be targeted, and sometimes you're feeling so much overwhelmed by these things. You're feeling so much targeted. You're feeling so alone, and it touches it's you from the core, because as a core you feel that you're so helpless. You cannot do anything despite having a lot of education, despite having a big maybe a family background. At the end of the day, to feel everything, and you are alone at the end of the day to speak about yourself. And as you said that you did not get the justice the way you wanted to. I mean, there are a lot of cases. Maybe there are underprivileged cases, and maybe there are a lot of killing as well. People are being killed because of these reasons. People are threatened. People abused. Families are threatened as well. If you see the general perspective in the whole society, you might remember that I shared few cases with you, and that was that was two different perspective. I mean, two different strata of the society, and they were not safe. So it means that nobody's safe anywhere. So what we could do is, create such kind of discussions and talk about these things, And maybe we cannot lessen the trauma of somebody, but maybe we can give them a voice to become the voice of someone, to become voice for the people who cannot talk about themselves. Because what we could do from these discussions to prevent these things,
Right.
to create a safe society for ourselves, safe discussion for us and for girls who are coming, and even for other gender, as it's not just about the girl, because boys are victim too, because boys are victim of bullying as well in the school, in
Yes.
good schools. It's not just about talking about underprivileged area. So it's happening everywhere, and we cannot prevent these things. Okay, so like you said that you try to contact it, and you did not get registered. You were a visitor to some place, and okay, so fine. You just said it's a recent experience. So you just came to you coin this organization, you start working for that. Okay, what are the challenges do you think you still face? Because maybe these are our initial discussion. Maybe when we go further, we discuss.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the challenges that I face are multiple, right? The challenges that I face as an individual
We
are,
lot of
are
challenges.
the types of challenges. Yeah, the types of challenges that I face as an individual are physical. I had physical damage to my body, but it's emotional, it's psychological. Reliving the process, re-experiencing certain traumatic, like PTSD, anxiety, depression. All of those things have hit me on a personal level. But I think what I'm learning in my process, and as Senseless continues to grow, what we're finding is that people are very uncomfortable talking about violence. They know that it occurs, they know that it's a common occurrence, but my own, peers, friends, family, people who are very close to me, they don't know how to support. They don't know what they should or shouldn't say. They're aware, and that it's a very the comments are like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Hopefully it doesn't happen again," right? Very blanket statement comments. But what I'm finding is that there's not a lot of understanding from not only the victim side, but to the communities and broad communities all over, that they don't understand how to have these difficult conversations that do help progress education, awareness, and prevention forward. And so I think the challenges that any victim faces after a traumatic event, and you could attest to this, is the emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual, all of these different things that they're feeling, that they need to do some therapy or perhaps some counseling. They need to really work through their traumas. And that could take a very long time. That's not necessarily, I think, maybe potentially more difficult than in some cases the traumas that they experience. It's very long lasting. But it is just getting in and having conversations with people and telling them that it's okay. It's not meant to make anybody uncomfortable. It's not for attention or anything. It's simply saying, this happened, this is happening. How do we move forward? How do we support people who are victims? How do we prevent the victims who have been traumatized? How do we prevent them from worsening in their own scenarios? How do we speak on it to children? How do we speak on it to other women? What do we do next? And the question is not, there is not one right answer. There are multiple right answers, and there's multiple ways to accomplish that. And I think really it's just getting out there and just doing and just existing and just raising your voice and having the conversations and allowing them to flow naturally. And I've found that in doing so, people really relate more on a personal level, and they feel more liberated to speak on their own traumas, on their own situations, on the things that they've experienced in a more whole and productive way. And so the challenge is to get them to do that. But once we are able to accomplish that, we find that people are excited to have conversations. They're wanting to help. They want to get involved. It's just teaching them how to do so.
You very much right, because a lot of people talk about it, and even they are afraid of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of a lot of seen to them, because as a human we are vulnerable. As a woman we are vulnerable more.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just talking about some different form. There are a lot of form of abuses. It's not just about some physical assault, it could be sexual abuse as well. And there are some kind of traumas which are, you could say, long lasting if you talk about abuse,
Correct.
especially if you
Yeah.
talk about sexual abuse. I'm not talking about physical violence, I'm talking about abuse. Because a child is child don't, because I'm just talking about this aspect because it hit me so badly. Because nowadays I'm watching, working with 2 3 clients as well, and their education is disrupted because of that reason. And they are
Right.
so bright student, and
Right.
just because of that trauma their memory is affected, their family is in so much trouble. And and we are trouble in more, we're in more trouble, because we don't know how to communicate to the parents that this is what is
Right.
happening, how to
Right.
tell them. Okay, even I was working with a girl, and she was with autism, and she was so cute. She was just angel. I just call them angels, and she was also the trauma, also the victim of abuse, and that was sexual abuse.
Mm.
And it was so difficult for us to communicate the parents, because the girl was not having mother. Her mother just left her when she was 2 3 months, because of her
Mm.
personal reason. Maybe she was having some form of depression. And
Mhm.
there were very little person in her home. And there were a lot of, because their office were nearby that home. And one day I just went to her session, and there was a man who was cleaning, and he was looking the girl in a very bad manner. Because, and you might, you could say, you would agree on that part, that as a human,
Mhm.
female human are, more prone to what these things. They can alert, because God make their mind just like that, because they're too much alert on these things. So that look was uncomfortable for me. I was
Mhm.
looking at that, why that person looking at girl like that way. So uh, she was acting some in weird sense. She did not act with me just that way, because I was working with her for quite long, maybe 1 year or more. So one day that person left that home. They went to their own home, and that girl starting acting so weird. And what happened, because she was doing a lot of stuff, because there's a very long debate. One day when we were doing, about that sexual abuse, I will like to mention that case as well. So she started crying so badly. It was like she's hurting, so that I could not express her anger, or her anger that she was in that. But she was a harmless child, maybe a 3 4 year old girl, and a
Mm.
girl who cannot even speak about her needs, speak about her wants. She don't know how to ask when she's hungry. She don't know how to ask when when she wants to drink some water. So she was the victim of that thing. And these things are going with these trauma and these wounds that stay with you for so long. And even in therapy, these things are so difficult, how to
Right.
come up with these things. A lot of these discussions with the. So
Mhm.
these are, even as a female, or as a therapist, or even as a it was difficult to bring up the discussions, because people are not comfortable with these discussions. Even people don't want to, name these things. People don't want to talk about, when you talk about the people that you need to give them the sexual education. They are not,
Right.
they don't want to even take the terminology. They're not
Right.
comfortable with that. I think they should be comfortable with that, so that we start discussion about these things. And as well as other traumas are concerned, either it's physical abuse. So people are affecting in different ways, that they are
Yes.
not going to the job because of that. Because if a woman is assault, of abuse, and she's got some bruises on her face, and her hand is displaced, so automatically she's going to have leave from the school, from the organization, from the place where she's working. So that is affecting her in every aspect. I'm sure you would agree
Right.
to these things. So okay, other than physical, you could say, because trauma and give you PTSD, that is the first thing that come in our mind, that either when it's trauma, then a person is going to have post-traumatic stress disorder. But then there are a lot of different aspects associated with that thing. I'm not just talking about psychological aspect. I'm talking about other aspects. So what are the other aspects that that are important to discuss and that are important to acknowledge over here? I would like you to comment on that thing.
Sure. Yeah, there's a number of things that are related to PTSD. And I think the biggest one that I hear is flashbacks. I think that tends to be a trigger for a lot of people. And it's just when they're in a position, or when they hear something, or when there's something that reminds them of their trauma. It could be a look, it could be walking down a particular street, it could be as a day of the year or a month, or something that triggers an emotional response in them, and it causes them to have that reoccurring re-experience of that event. And so I think it starts with flashbacks in a lot of cases for most people, which leads then to further PTSD type of response that could cause anxiety and depression. But what I find is that I think it's so sensitive. I feel like people experience flashbacks, and then the victims have been made to feel degraded in a way because they've been the victim of trauma. So then when they experience the flashback and they relive the trauma, then in many ways the cycle starts all over again. They feel that sense of shame, or that sense of embarrassment, or the sense of they can't speak up because somebody may or may not understand. And so I think the questions that we have to be asking are, how do we empower women to speak up before trauma, to speak up after trauma happens, but then also to be comfortable during that process after the fact, because that's where the change happens, that's where the healing happens. But I found that PTSD tends to make people a bit reclusive in wanting to speak about it. So that's a great question for you. What in your experience do you use as a tool to help people when they're coping with PTSD, anxiety, depression from a trauma? What are great tools that our community and communities around the world can utilize to help, transition forward?
Kind of therapy will go toward these people?
I'm sorry, one more time.
This is what. Yes, repeat your question, please. You're asking me that what are the therapeutic
Right.
interventions for these people who are facing traumas?
Yeah, what in your professional experience, what are the best ways for victims of trauma who are experiencing PTSD, anxiety, depression? What are some of the common ways that you would work with a victim, and what are ways that people can apply those things into their everyday life? How can they utilize? What tools do you have that people can utilize?
Okay, whenever we're talking about therapy, so people have this in the mind that they're going to go for the CBT and stuff like that, behavior therapy and client-centered therapy. They're different kind of therapy. So what we believe is that whenever some such people came to us, or such people came to me, there are basically three forms of psychotherapies. It could be reconstructive, re-educative, and supportive therapy. So what I would say is supportive and re-education therapy, education therapy is very much important for these people, and it could impart the skill. First always start with speaking about yourself, about your feeling, about validating your feeling. So it always start with free association. First you give the tool, or you could say the confidence to the person, to the patient, to the client, that they start talking about the feelings, the problems, what they face, how they face it. Okay, so it could take some time because in start people are not comfortable in talking what they are going through. So we have testing as well. We're using testing as well, and in the testing we
Mm-hmm.
and secondly is depend upon the okay, so that part is done. For example, that we did the testing and that part is done. So the moment we are going toward the therapeutic part, so first thing is when the person has PTSD, the person is automatically going to feel that the world is shaking, everything is going roaming around the person, and their heart is sinking. So the best thing for these individuals are having breathing exercises, and it is a form of relaxation techniques that they just need to sit on the chair. That's the simplest form. The next forms are guided imagery and stuff like that, and systematic desensitization. These are some therapeutic skills. So if you're just sitting, just relax in the chair,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to have some, just do like that and just deep breathe. Take a deep breath, and breathe would be like you need to have all the oxygen in your lungs and your stomach come out, and you just need to focus on that. Just don't think about anything else. Just don't say something, don't words anything. Just focus on your breath and breathe out. Just count 1, 2, 3. Relax. It's just like
breathing in and
so.
out.
It will, yeah, breathe in out. It's a simple way. You just, if you try it for 2 or 3 times, you just need to take a loud breathe, and the breathe would be like you have to take all that oxygen you're inside, so that your stomach is full of your lungs are full of air, and your stomach should come out when you breathe in. That is a
Right.
technique. Okay, and when you breathe out, you just need to take all the negativity from yourself. Okay, this is one technique. Okay, second technique is called it's also coming in the breath, but we are focusing the whole mind, whole body of that person. So over here imagery also involved, the body is also involved. The muscle relaxation techniques are also involved. So these are different form of techniques. So it starts from your, either you could use your upper body or use your lower body. So that is one technique. So, and the therapist kind of thing that you need to come and you will talk about that thing in a place where you feel comfortable with. You don't need to talk about that thing. You will not need to tell them that I'm having these kind of, because whenever you talk with these people, they start unvalidate yourself, unvalidate your trauma, unvalidate your experience, and that is very damaging for the person, because that person start having bad. That person could have bad dreams. The person could have bad memories and stuff like that. And when you talk about these things with people who just laymen, what they will say, no, it's just hallucination. You're not having these kind of dreams. So at that moment you start questioning yourself. So when we do therapy, we always ask, or always require a patient to talk about the trauma they're having and their genuine feelings. They should not lie about what they feel. And
Right.
second thing is that feel valid. They're feeling anyway. What they're feeling is valid. Because whatever coming in your mind, whatever you feel, that you felt, actually that you felt. It's not your hallucination, it's not your dreaming. You're not dreaming. You're not daydreaming. Okay? So when this step is, when you go to the next step and you validate these feelings, that yes, this happened to me, and that's how it changed myself, and then your brain will had that idea. Then you move forward toward other things. For example, looking toward other ways, working what you are working, doing your job and stuff like that, and having that therapy side by side as well. And the thing is that therapy is the continuous process. You should
Yep.
not, it's not like that you just go for one session and you just not go for the other session. And meanwhile working with the therapy, we are giving different kind of techniques, or you could say homework to the person, that how they could work with on themselves, how could they do a new thing, how could they change their schedule, how could they challenge themselves, how could they learn a new skill. So it's more about transformation of the person. And over thing, one important thing over here is that sometimes people are saying that stop thinking negatively. And over
Exactly.
here you need to understand that you cannot stop, because thinking are automatic. How could you stop? Because let
Yeah.
me give you an example. Whenever you touch something hot, your hand is automatically going backward,
Mm.
and that is a reflex action. That's how your brain is working. So
Yeah.
how could
Mm.
you, very few people understand that therapy. What is the talk therapy? They don't really understand this idea. Maybe many professionals don't understand this idea. Whenever you're talking, I mean, when the client is talking, then the client is talking to himself as well. So it's
Yep.
not, you're not just talking to yourself, the therapist, you're talking to yourself as well. And then you understand it. Oh, this is what we are feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the revelation as well. But before that, why you were not able to think? Because you were in cloud. There was negativity.
Yeah.
There was negativity around you. There was hope. And whenever you find in some situation, whenever you're in some, you should immediately go to the therapist, because when you repress these feelings, whenever in your life, it's kind of it could be any negative thing. It could be any trauma for yourself. Whenever you repress these feelings, it will come in ugly way, and it will create
Mm-hmm.
a lot of damage for you. So that is a
Yeah.
little thing. And secondly, it's also depending upon the person as well. So whether you are a strong person, whether you're, and it's okay to be a vulnerable person. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
cry. It's
Yeah.
okay to have some negative feeling. If you're not validated this feeling, you will not understand what are the positive things. And all the time the positivity is not good all the time. How could you think positive all the time? Then your environment is so much negative. Our job is always, to have a reality contact.
Yeah. I find that a lot of people, when they talk about their traumas or they talk about their experience, they always tell me, then they always say, everybody tells me I should just get over it. Everybody says I should just be, it's over, it's done. And I feel like that is a big disconnect, right? Between when something's happened to you, it is very difficult at times. You want to move on. You don't want to relive the same situation. You want to be able to resume life as normal, not have any fear or anxiety. But I feel like sometimes people are less compassionate, and they don't offer the same kind of grace that they would want for somebody else, right? It's just get over it. It's happened. You should be better by now, and sort of undermine some of those after effects of what victims have gone through. And I think even more so, probably with men just as much as women, if not more, because I imagine, and I know for a fact that there's a stigma amongst males that they're to be tough and brave and bold. And so when men, young boys, too, are victims of a trauma, and society tells them that they need to be tough and they need to be brave and bold, that typically they're the ones who suffer at the very, very core of who they are, because they're afraid to speak out once, let alone speak out again and get therapy and stand up for it. And so what recommendations, what solutions do you see that could be an effective tool specifically for young men as they learn to navigate speaking on their own behalf and for their healing?
Okay, I think we are back again.
We're back.
We're back. You know what I do? I close the window and I again, resume the setting. So that's how we get immediately over here. And over here is Azan time as well. So what question you were asking from me? Because the
Yeah,
moment you start asking the question,
that's okay. Yeah, the question was, I was saying how it's very difficult for any victim to speak up, and to be honest, as you were saying, with their therapy, honest with their feelings, but more so for men, young men in particular, in a society that tells them and stigmatizes men as being very portraying individuals and putting it together. What advice do you have in particular for young boys and men who are struggling as victims?
So you're asking that how man is going to come out of this and how they're going to speak about that. Okay, the interesting thing is that in our society, male are coming toward more than female, and there are aspect of that. And over here, it's Azan going on. I would like to pause for a few minutes. Over here, Azan is going on. Okay, just 2-3 minutes. It's Azan time. We are back again. Yes, we are
I'm
back.
here.
Okay, yes, thank God it's better now. Okay, you were asking that as you're asking about males that they're coming or not. Okay, what I would like to mention over here, and that is very interesting, that people are coming to us for different reasons. I mean, there might be have a trauma behind that problem. For example, they will come to us that they're not able to continue their education. They're not able to continue their their work. They're not able to continue some form of relationship, or they're having some kind of anxiety and depression. But they're coming for that reason, and behind they have the trauma, and they're the living trauma, and sometimes they're victim for the trauma for longer period of time. What you're trying to ask. Did you got my answer, Jay?
I can kind of a little bit hear you. I feel like I'm losing the audio and the video on my side.
Okay, you're just your audio say your video is not here. Okay, I'm just saying that people coming male are coming more in the therapy as compared to female, and there are different reasons for that. There
Okay.
one aspect is economical aspect, that have to come for the therapy because he's a bread earner, and he have to continue his job, continue his education, because he have to look after the family. So, but the male are coming us for different reasons. The person could come us for the person not able to continue the job. that person is having a lot of absentees from the job, not able to continue the occupation, not able to do the usual stuff what that person was doing. But the the reason is different, but the actual problem is lying behind that reason. So the person could be affecting from the trauma for a longer period of time, and just because of the stigma attached to that thing, they're not able to talk to about that thing. They're not even able to share that problem with their family members or even the therapist. So it took
Right.
a lot of time for us to talk about that thing.
One thing that I think is interesting from what you've said and from what I know in our discussion previously is that no matter where you are in the world, right, regardless of where you are, your age, your gender, what kind of trauma you've experienced, people feel the same way after the fact. It's that they're feeling frightened, they're feeling afraid to speak up, they're feeling confused on how to speak up. And so the question remains, right? How do violence in general, interpersonal violence is a global issue. It affects every
True.
nation on the planet. It affects people of all ages, demographics, societal backgrounds, economical backgrounds. And so it is the questions I feel like we ask here stateside, I'm sure all over the world, are, how do we bring awareness? But maybe the questions we need to be asking are deeper than that. How do we change a global epidemic of pain and hurt that has been recurring for centuries, generations? How do we move forward from that? How do we move forward from that? We have every tool at our disposal in this day and age. In 2022, we have the therapy, we have the medical treatment, we have all of the resources that we need to equip people. But how do we move forward from that? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Well, what I think that why people are getting, accepting these facts. The person is not speaking about that themselves, because whenever we talk about the abuse, we talk about the trauma, we talk about, it's a that, to be manipulated by someone, to be harmed by someone, to be get emotionally manipulated by someone. So and this thing continue for so longer period of time. Even when the people are separated from each other, they will seek that relationship again. So you might have seen a lot of abusive relationship. That why a person is going toward that, because the abuser is giving a sense of belongingness to that person. The abuser is giving sense of control to that person, because and the other thing is that the abuser is also a kind of a strong person. I would not say that he's a emotionally strong person, but the abuser is thinking that the abuser is a strong person, that he's going to, whatever the abuser do, he's going to take back that person again. You might have seen this happening in relationships as well. That the bad fights going on, you ask them to go to police, and even then they go back. And police said that if they're not, she's not saying that the person hit her, so let's just shut this case, and there's no case to report. So but they're getting the psychological thing from them, and behind that is abusive relationship with the parents, especially with the father. So it's a it's a whole psychology wrong behind that thing. And the verbal abuse, accepting that the fact that okay, as a female you have to accept that abuse. And in a lot of cultures still this is happening, that if a woman who is a married woman is getting abused or getting assault or by her husband, then she don't have any place to go. She have children with that person, and she know that the and what a statement a person girl is giving, because I'm working from quite longer time period, and the woman is giving me the statement that he's the father of my children, and he's very good with my children. So it means that if he's very good with my children, means that I am supposed to be there, because the woman is economically dependent to that person. Okay, man is coming to therapy because men are dependent, and woman is not going out of that thing, and she's you could say that she's bound to stay over there. Bound just because of children, and just because of economical factors, she don't have any place to go, and she don't have a place where she can ask justice, even if she belonged to influential family. So
Right.
that relationship could gaining something from that relationship, that psychological
Mhm.
relationship. That so I think we need to start from personal level, that what are the boundaries. We are talking about child as well. Children need to know that what are the boundaries, who can
Right.
touch them, who cannot touch them. It's not about good and bad touch. I'm not talking about that. That is a separate debate. But I'm talking about the
General.
touch. Who can touch? Yes, who can touch them? Even in my where I'm working, I strictly forbid that somebody's taking the child in their lap. They're not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to
Right.
touch a child without consent. You know what I mean that
Yeah. It's
a
just
person is
teaching
not
children
supposed to touch a
to be
child
aware.
without consent. To have some boundaries, and these boundaries are so important. When a parent is going to teach the boundaries to the children, then they're going to have the idea that okay, this is my body, and this is
Yeah.
myself, and how I'm going to protect myself. So
Yeah.
first thing is that without other person, then they should not talk. Somebody is repressing you if you know how to handle healthy boundaries. Definitely these children understand how to talk about themselves as well, how to talk about their own body, how to talk about their rights, how to talk about how to
Absolutely.
say loudly no, that yes, we don't want to talk to you, we don't want to have this space. So I think that starts from there. We need to have these conversations so often. It's we're back together.
Yeah. I can hear you again. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just talking that we need to have more often this conversation, that
I agree. Yeah.
what are the boundaries, and I'm talking about the boundaries all aspects. What is the meaning of no, and how
Yeah.
to say. That is the thing. I
I think.
think if these
Go
are
ahead.
some basic things.
No, go ahead. I think it's important for us to, when we teach children boundaries, right? As parents, as adults, when we teach them boundaries, it's important, equally as important, if not more important, to teach ourselves how to respect those boundaries. Because I think sometimes the disconnect is teaching children their boundaries, but then we're sometimes as adults inconvenienced when those children speak up on their boundaries, and then we justify it. I'm the parent, I'm the adult, I'm the teacher, which then communicates to the child, well, some boundaries don't actually need to be enforced, or some boundaries will not be respected. And so I think it's a two-part system, right? Teaching them how to speak up and have an affirmative no, but also being willing on our side as adults to acknowledge why they're saying no, when they're saying no, and if necessary, have conversations to better understand their boundaries instead of simply shutting them down. So, that's a two-way street. I think if we can do that at an early age, then we raise very communicative, very outspoken, very intentional, and individuals who do have self worth, and they have self care, and they are also very conscious of how they interact with other people as well. And I do believe, as you were saying, it does start at a very early age to be able to effectively create individuals who will have really long lasting uh, sense of boundary and respect for themselves and others.
And second, this is also, it's more about having understanding understanding what is the concept of self-respect. We
Yes.
all the time talk about self-image, self-image. Do we have some idea what is self-respect?
Mm,
So it's
right.
important that how we are going to go. And secondly, this very important thing I would like to mention over is that people think that if a child is saying no, that is disrespect.
Yeah.
You need to have a conversation with the child why the child is saying no,
Yeah.
and you need to be on
Absolutely.
your own ground as well. First thing is that why children are confused in no, because your no have confusions. When you
Yeah.
say a no to the child, that means it's a no.
Yeah.
You're not going to
And
have this conversation again. No means no, and yes means yes. So
yes. And I think as adults, right?
why parents children, and that is the child parents relationship is so.
Yeah. And it's when we're adults and a child questions our decision making, we often tell the child that they're out of place. We've set a boundary, we make a decision, and then if we question child, it's just the way that it is. I've made the deal with it, but somehow that doesn't quite equate when a child sets a boundary and an adult questions it. Then we have them believing or second guessing their own self. And I think so. We do have a responsibility then to teach and educate them. And what makes that very challenging, though, is when cycles of abuse go from one generation into another, or if it's a cultural or societal behaviors that are very common practices, it's very hard to break that cycle and to talk about self-worth and self-image when that's not ever been displayed or is not currently an option in some cases for kids to speak on.
Yes, we are back.
I can hear you.
So I'm saying that the abuse, the and the trauma, it runs in family until unless
Yes.
somebody come and break that cycle. So how are you going to break that cycle?
Yeah, it's difficult to do.
This is happening. It's difficult to, but we have to start from some place. Now it's not that it's there are a lot of things which are difficult. Maybe this conversation was difficult for us, and we are still facing a lot of difficulty of the internet connection stuff like that. Even then we are doing this discussion, and we are then giving our time to this discussion and brainstorming these ideas. So that was difficult for us as well. Maybe technology was making us difficult, maybe some emotional. And as a woman, in every at any stage of life, you are somehow victim of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody talk to you that way, somebody giving you a jeep, difficult and an annoyed look, and and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you, why you came out of the house.
Yeah.
That is different thing that everybody is facing,
Yeah.
but we cannot stop their mouth. It's very difficult for us to
Yeah.
stop them and not being able to not having their own, you could say, their bad intention towards somebody thing and some people. But what we could do is we could equip ourselves, we could equip our children, we could equip our generation, that how
Yeah.
they are going to fight this. Because maybe if a person is able to say, speak, maybe even a scream is coming from a child mouth, a scream is coming from your mouth, could give a shut up call to that person and
Right.
make that person step backward. So I think, despite of the fact that people are uncomfortable for these discussions, we have to do this, because I don't think so. Prevention, there's nothing thing we could do other than prevention, and I
Right.
think awareness is very much at any stage of life. It's not just that we are, educated people or we are in some field. Everybody needs that awareness. Everybody needs that education, and we need to spread that awareness as well. So
Right.
create an awareness and give
Yeah, I think that
courage
it's important.
to other people to talk. Oh, don't know how to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's the point. That a lot of people
You
are suffering in silence. We have to be a voice for these people.
Yeah, and I think even just speaking up in general, right? When one person speaks up, it liberates another person to speak up. And when two people speak up, it liberates two more people. And so it really is a domino effect. If if one person has the courage to use their voice, not only for themselves, but for their community, for their friends, their family, the people around them, then the hope is, and in often cases, people find a lot of courage and they're inspired by that. Oh, I want to speak up too. I want to say something too. And that's what we need. We need women who are not afraid to be vulnerable. We need women who are not afraid to embrace the things that make being a woman sometimes challenging and beautiful at the same time. We need women who are looking at the long term, not what is in it for me, but what's in it for women around the world. What is in it for women's rights? What does that mean? And what can I do? And I think when we do that, when we have enough women to do that, and what we're seeing is that women globally are speaking up. They're stepping up. They're saying enough is enough. And so the tides will turn eventually, but it just takes one person to speak up. Your friend, your family takes education, resources, and awareness to say we have to fight this and we have to do it head on. And so, like, it's just showing up every day, showing up, having courage every day to fight. Even if you don't feel bad that day, even if your trauma isn't affecting you that day, it's a great day. It's a deliberate, cognizant choice to say, I am choosing to stand on who I am as an individual, and I'm choosing to stand and use my platform, even if it's 10 people that I'm reaching, 100 people, 1,000 people. I'm choosing to speak up for them, for their rights, for their wellness, for their health, for their safety, for their security, and pursuing that. And I think that that's where we're moving. I think people want change. I think it's time that we start to begin to eliminate toxic masculinity and toxic behaviors that have kept us captive to abuse, to trauma, to making it so prevalent, to accept it and to silence it. And I think what we're seeing is that people are open to having difficult conversations. And honestly, it's such a beautiful thing, because the only way that change occurs is when we're in it, changing it day by day, in it together.
Our thing, important thing over here is that that it's sometimes you're getting offended and you're getting bullied by same gender as well. It's not just about masculinity. Sometimes the femininity is toxic as well.
Absolutely.
One thing is that, and second thing is that because you're sometimes you're getting abused by you're getting judgmentally remarked by your female colleague, and they are railing around you. Just you don't go you just don't get appraised in your pay and stuff like that. So they will kick you out from that office as well, everywhere, because they're jealous and they don't have the courage, or they don't have the intelligence that you got. And simple things that they don't want to the hard work you are doing, and they don't like you doing that hard work as well. One thing is that. The second thing is that I would like to tell everyone today who are listening to me that trauma is trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
After you're still having, so it's still valid. So don't think that something happened to you did not change you. Yes, it changed you. It changed your personality. It changed the chemistry of your brain as well. It changed your whole life. And same is true for the incident. Yes. First thing is that. The second thing is that yes, this happened to you, and you don't want other people to you don't want other to have that kind of experiences. So don't push yourself in the sense that why this happened to you, you're a bad person, and a victim is a bad person. No, it's not like that. It's never like that. Anything could happen to anyone at any stage.
Yeah,
sometimes those abuser, they might be in that cycle as well when they were children, because in researches shows that same thing happened to these people as well. So I would say that we should give them treatment. I always say that thing. We talk about just give them justice and stuff like that and go. I would say that whether that person who was victim, the abuser in any form, whether he's a killer, whether he's a he commit rape with the children, who is a molestation, stuff like that, they all should need therapy as well. Just don't send them to the jail. and the judge them that for the thing they have done or sentences and stuff like that. We need to give them treatment as well, so that they understand that why they did this. So they get more aware of what they did, and maybe there's a better way to stop them doing that thing in the future.
Yeah.
So
I
I
do
think
think though that
most
there is a
important.
fine line between teaching, or maybe it's maybe it's a fine line. It's between teaching abusers and people who victimize other people, not only giving them the resources that they need, but also keeping them accountable. And we need to, I think, across the board, just understand that accountability comes as a part of life. Each person on the planet has to be accountable for their own actions,
Yeah,
right? And so
yeah, action
we
have
can't.
consequences. True,
Absolutely.
action
And
have
so
consequences.
we need to teach people that it's okay to be accountable, because the only way for change to come is for a result. It's a result of a consistent action. Even if that means the action is hard and that accepting what you've done was wrong, there still needs to be a consequence for that. But I do agree with you in saying that outside of those consequences, we need to be able to provide the resources and do the work with each person, the victim and the accused or the attacker, so that they can find out what their own internal needs are in order to become better. Because if we simply just sweep it under the rug and act as if their own traumas don't exist, we're just repeating the cycle over and over again, and
Yeah.
we're really not
And
changing
always
anything.
with the we are the abuser, because
Yeah,
for a person who spent his whole life in a place where
yeah,
criminal lives, where killing is a normal thing. For them, that is a normal thing. So we need
yes,
to rehabilitate this individual as well, because we are giving them a place. We are giving them punishment, and we are sending them to jail. What they are doing in the jail? Okay. What if we give them some space over there? We give them rehabilitate, so that they could at least do some counseling
right,
over there, that yes, I changed my life. Because we have to give chance to everyone, no
yeah,
matter what they do. Forgiveness is something else, it's coming from inside. Okay. So everybody should be accountable for what they are doing, because action have the consequence. But we have to rehabilitate these individuals as well, beside giving them the punishment, the sentences, and the the legal system and stuff like that. So I think over there, maybe the situation changed for these people. Maybe they, when they ever they came outside, they're good people, they're different people, and they start doing something better for the society as well, where maybe they become a
right,
voice for those who are in need. So I think when we do good, then it's a karma work their way. So it's not about always about you're doing something bad and bad will come to you. Maybe when you
yeah,
do good, the good come to you as well. So why
yeah.
not we
It's
start over here? We should have a different approach to see these things, because there's a lot of negativity everywhere. So do this. These are bad action. They have to do this. These need to be punished. So what is the way forward? We need to talk about
yeah,
everything. We need to talk about all the possibilities, and it start from very basic level. We don't need we don't need fancy equipment for talking about these things. We don't need hard things to do that thing. Simple conversations are enough. I'm sure you will agree to this point. And is there something else you want to add today? Because we did a lot of important discussion today, and that was emotional as well, and that was revealing as well. That was educational as well, because over here, when we see somebody on the talking about something, they think that they are very strong people. And they are very strong people. They buy things, but they don't see that us behind a strong woman, there's a very you could say there's a series of incidents which make her a strong woman. And being
yeah,
a strong doesn't mean that you cannot be vulnerable. It doesn't give you that you could say, it doesn't give other people the idea. They should not judge you on that thing, that you being a strong, you cannot have you cannot get into these experiences. Everybody can get into these experiences, and everybody have the chance, or everybody have the right to feel the way they want to feel. If they are
absolutely,
vulnerable, if they are feeling bad about that thing, then let them feel bad about that thing, and let them speak about that thing. So if you don't give them space to talk about these things, then they're going to uh, damage themselves. Damage and self harm is not just about hitting yourself, or doing bad stuff about yourself, not taking care of yourself. It's also about unvalidating your feelings and unvalidating your traumas as well. And everybody have these experiences in their life. So it's better to have a positive or I would say supportive. I would say supportive aspect for everyone around us. And
Yeah.
why not we start, talking about these things so often that it become a normalcy, it become a norm to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's how we are going to change these things. We don't have any other thing. We don't have, you could say, magic wand that we just do that and things change. It's not going to change. Discussions are important that could change these things.
Exactly. What we know to be certain is that abuse and trauma happens everywhere around the world, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
And what we also know is that it takes everybody around the world, regardless of who you are, to move forward from those things, right? It takes a lot of people to work collectively. And so I do agree to your point. It is, you never know what somebody's going through, why they make the decisions that they're making. Whether those are good decisions or bad decisions is irrelevant. It's, I think we need to allow ourselves to be human, both on our high moments and our low moments, and feel what we need to feel in order to bring change to the areas of things that need to be changed. But in particular, as it pertains to trauma, violence, healing, therapy, and just continue to make these conversations common, practical, and accessible to people, so that we can implement change on a regular, consistent basis.
So thank you so much, Jay, for giving us a time, and I really enjoyed the today conversation. And I was not expecting we will go on this, but when we were planning, that our idea was different. But when we did conversation, that went so beautiful and so relatable. It's not about that we are from two different places and two different communities, or we are from two different continents.
Yeah.
Problems are the same.
The problems stay the
Everywhere
same
problems
regardless
are
of who you are.
the
Yep.
same, regardless of the feelings are the same, the experiences are the same, and the conclusion we are drawing from these things are the same as well. So
Yes.
very much right that these things happen everywhere, and we will try to have these conversations so often that
Yeah.
it become a norms to talk about these things. So thank you so much
Mhm.
for giving us time today. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Senseless,
for having me.
and you're
Yes.
doing a great job. And let's have other conversation of that nature as well. So I'm
Absolutely.
saying off to my viewers, and see you another the
Thank
live
you for
streaming as
having
well.
me. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.